Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are and wherever you are. Welcome to the community live stream. This is the show that takes you into the ServiceNow community to give you not only the answers, but the thought process, the journey of discovery, the reverse engineering that goes on behind those answers so that you can take those skills to your organization and become a more effective ServiceNow administrator and developer. My name is Chuck Tomasi, been with ServiceNow for about 9 years, customer for a couple of years before that. My focus is on the platform, custom applications, integrations. That's where it is. So if I'm not answering questions about SecOps and GRC or something along that line, you'll know why. I'm not a subject matter expert in those areas. Hopefully one of my colleagues who is will be able to take up the mantle and do something similar to this. If you are watching on the YouTube live stream, thank you very much. I try to do this show weekdays at 1 p.m. UTC. There are other priorities that somehow jump up: travel, health. So this is an elective thing that I do for the love of the community, for the love of ServiceNow, and for the love of you. Thank you very much for joining me. You are welcome to subscribe at the URL that you see right there and click the notifications. You will get a notification that may or may not look something like that. Well, there's two of them in there. Never mind that one. That's our podcast we did last night. But you'll get a notification from YouTube that says, hey, we are live. And then you'll know to join, like John has done, like Steve from Sweden has done. And you can join in the fun, the conversation, maybe even correct a few typos that I make along the way. I am not above admitting I make mistakes. It happens. We're all human. So join us on YouTube. You can also go to that URL and find a wealth of other videos. There's more than just this community live stream. There are videos. I just posted one on Saturday for our latest episode of Tech Now is up there, episode 64. So if you missed our webinar last week on configuring the email client, that's been posted. It's also in the community as well. Lots of great stuff. Stephen Bell is coming up with another one on CMDB and another one on scripting best practices. So look for those. Lots of great subject matter experts making lots of great content on this community channel. So I encourage you, subscribe, get the notifications, and some are live, some are not. Some are recorded and posted. So lots and lots of great stuff. Good morning, GTK. Good morning, Carolyn. Oh my goodness, the people are rolling in fast and furious now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. We also have this video on Twitch. So if you go over to twitch.tv, let me get this going, twitch.tv/NOWCommunity, you will get that video as well. I often use that as a backup plan. Sometimes YouTube has video issues. I've got a local MP4 being recorded here at the same time, so I can often use that to replace the botched video. It happens every once in a while. I recorded an hour and it came out as 2 hours. The audio was wonky. Not sure what happened that day, but people said, hey, I was able to get the content from Twitch until Chuck fixed the YouTube video. So apologies when that happened. It's technology. It happens. It's the internet. Stuff is going to go a little crazy. So use Twitch as a backup plan. It'll be there for a couple of weeks. If you missed last Friday's show and can't seem to find it on YouTube, you can always go over there. So I encourage you to do that. Also encourage you, if you've got a question about ServiceNow or an issue you'd like to discuss, post it in the community. That's where the subject matter experts reside. That's where they discuss. That's where a lot of the good information happens that you can benefit from. If you post it into LinkedIn, it's tough to search. It really is. Other people aren't going to benefit from it, and you may not get the maximum reach that you need. If you've got a question on analytics and reporting, Adam Stout is not going to respond to it if you post it in this video, for example. He's not here. He's not watching. He probably doesn't watch afterwards. He's got a busy life as well. But he does look in the community, and he does participate there. So Adam Stout's one of our internal people that participates in the community, very knowledgeable about performance analytics and reporting. So if you want to grab attention for people like that, or Stephen Bell, or Jim Coyne, or Robert Federick, or Brad Tilton, or Pradeep Sharma, that's where you're going to get the expertise, is in the community. Make sure you post it once. Post it in the right community. Take a look at this menu and get familiar with what the sections are. If you go to all forums here at the bottom, you can then see, wow, there's some very specific things. And by being specific, you get it into the right place. There are people that monitor those, so I don't want to dwell on that too much. You know, communities, search first, understand what the etiquette is, and then go nuts. Okay, have fun with it. Chuck, can you explain GlideRecords, please? I can do that. Give me just a minute to finish up the intros, and we will go right to that. Also recommend that you take a look at the developer community. Developer.servicenow.com is where you can get a free personal developer instance. Under Manage Instance, you can go claim that. API information, free scripting API, REST APIs, all the documentation you need to be an effective developer is there. Free learning plans, lots of training, lots of documentation. Even if you've never done anything on ServiceNow before, you can start from scratch. If you're a web developer coming from a different environment and you want to learn more about ServiceNow, how does ServiceNow do this stuff? You can find that, making service portal widgets, making REST APIs, making a complete application from the start to finish. It's in here. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Meetups, online and in person. We've got events that you can see on the, come on, where's the events menu? Lots of upcoming meetups. We've got videos, lots of videos that happen. Again, online, live vid, you name it, it's in there. The meetups are also over. If you're not part of this and you want to participate in one of these, you can go to meetup.com/pro/ServiceNow dev program. We've got over 50 chapters around the globe. Of course, when mine comes up, it says, hey, there's one near you. It's in Phoenix. I don't need one in Phoenix right now. We had one last Thursday. It was a good time. We may have another one in July or August, so planning on that. So take a look at our developer meetups. Great stuff there. And encourage you to sign up, get a free personal developer instance. As part of that, you get the quarterly newsletter as well. We send out an email. There is another one coming out next week, I believe. It's been drafted, it's been reviewed, it's time to release. So lots of great information about that newsletter coming up. Let's talk about, we don't have a knowledge slide yet, but what we do have, let me put that lower third away, is if you go over to knowledge.servicenow.com, you can find all the videos. First of all, reserve the date for next year, because there are only 307 days left. And while that may seem like kind of a silly number, this is the time to start planning for next year's budget, to say, I would like to go. And here's what you can get out of it. We have the video libraries down here at the bottom left. You can see, watch the videos, or the video library up here, same link, top right. You could check out the keynotes either in their entirety or broken down by segments. We've got that all over in the video library. So check out knowledge.servicenow.com. Lots of great stuff if you missed it, or obviously we couldn't all be in all the places at the same time. So this is a way to catch up on things you may have missed because you were over in one session and another was happening. So invite you to take a look at that. We have another webinar coming up. I don't have a slide for this one yet, but July 30th, I'll be doing another Tech Now on ATF. So the new features in Automated Test Framework. You won't want to miss that. I've got the product manager, Shriti Verma, is going to be talking and demonstrating that. So mark your calendars, July 30th, 8 a.m. Pacific time. I will get a slide up here in the next week or so, as soon as our campaigns team has that available to me. And then you start getting emails about that as well. So looking forward to sharing that. Any script that we write today is going to be available in the GitHub repo that you see there with the dated folder. Don't know if there will be, based on the fact that we have a GlideRecord question. Quite likely, because I can't do a GlideRecord without writing script. So we'll post that back to the GitHub repo so that you can take that and make it your own. It's available minutes after the camera stopped rolling. So that's when I do my post-production. Got to get on with the rest of my day. I don't want this to be a drag on productivity, so I've automated as much as possible, and you can pick up the scripts and hopefully automate as much as possible there as well. Real quick questions in the here. Is it me or is the sound a bit funky? Getting sort of a radio static white noise intermittently. Me too on the static. The mic hits some static now and then. Let me back it down just a little bit. Let me know how that is. Is that better on the audio? I may have been peaking somewhere. Don't want to overdrive the outputs or inputs or whatever it is. Are there any videos telling about changes in New York? Yes, we have changes in New York coming. Look for that. That's my August 20th platform stuff. We will be having a launch video in September that does a high level of what's coming in CSM, HR, ITSM. So look forward to that. There's lots and lots of new material coming in New York. So watch for announcements on New York launch, New York availability. If you get, I forgot to tell you, if you get a personal developer instance over at developer.servicenow.com, you will have early access to New York. So that'll be available near the end of July. Hey, it's July now. Happy July 1st. This is the show for July 1st, 2019, and that GitHub repo folder will be dated 2019-07-01. So you will have early access to New York at the end of this month, whereas general availability doesn't become available until early September. So take a look at that as a way to test it out, kick the tires, learn what you can. And then I will be coming along soon after on August 20th to tell you all the cool stuff that you can get in New York from the platform perspective. There isn't enough time in the 1-hour webinar that I've got to go over everything. So I want to get as much of the platform as I can. New APIs, new tables, new tools. There's one coming along for the no-code capabilities. A lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff. Okay, audio's better? I hope so. Thank you. That's what we get for trying to tweak the settings just before the show. You will enjoy learning GlideRecord when he goes over it. Why don't we say we go over that now? This is totally unscripted. You help drive the content via your posts on the community. Lots of different things. So let's take a look at some simple operations. I am going to start with my personal developer instance, which is around here somewhere. Log in. Get that up and running. And just to be like a default setting, I'm going to switch to the global scope. Now, there is a module in here under system definition called scripts background. And I'm going to use that extensively as I walk through some simple GlideRecord operations. GlideRecord, and for reference, I'm going to pull that up under the API server. GlideRecord is a server-side scripting class that lets us interact with the database. So as a former, I'll call myself a SQL DBA light. I wasn't a professional DBA, but I did use it when I wrote my other applications. I wrote a ticketing system in 1994 that took advantage of MySQL. Funny enough, I just found out about a week ago that application is still in use in certain parts of my old organization. I never, in my wildest dreams, dreamt that something I threw together and then eventually nursed into production and widespread global usage would still be available 25 years later. Oddly enough, they could probably replace this entire application with a couple of catalog items. So I'm going to be talking to my peers next month about why they aren't doing that. So my point there was I used to write SQL statements, and I was fairly adequate at Oracle and MySQL because this application could move between the two. Sound a lot like ServiceNow? Yeah, if I'd met Fred Luddy 5 years earlier, my life would be a little bit different because we had the same method but different approaches to it, or same goal but different approaches to it. But GlideRecord lets you interact with the database without having to learn SQL. You learn to use this class and the methods or the functions that it includes. So if I look up GlideRecord here, I get this page. And there is a fair amount of things. But let's start out with a simple example. I'm going to bring up my text editor, or my code editor. This is Microsoft Visual Studio Code. Put away my GitHub window and create a new window. Okay. Simple GlideRecord query. The way you use this is to declare a variable, and I am going to name it somewhat relevant rather than just saying gr. You'll find in a lot of these examples, it uses var gr. And this one actually uses var inc, which I like to indicate what type of variable. So when I see it later, inc doesn't look to me like an incremented variable. It is var gr. Okay. Instantiate a new GlideRecord class. That's how you use this. And tell it what table. That's it. Says, I want to start messing around with the incident table using this incgr variable. When I need to get a list of records, I simply say incgr.query. I like to think of this as hitting enter on the SQL command line. Okay, if you've done DBA before, you say select select these fields from this table, possibly where this condition is active equals true. It doesn't do anything until you actually hit enter. And then it goes, oh, I'll go get those records for you. That's what the query does for me. It says, submit this, commit this command, do this thing, and tell the database to get to work. That's what query does. So everything between here and here, which is currently nothing, is a setup. It might be filtering, it might be sorting, it might be who knows. So that's coming. So I'm going to make that submission. Now the database has a list and a pointer. So it's going, all right, I got something for you. You need to access it. I'm going to write a while loop and say, while incgr, because everything's going to be accessed through the gr, next says, if you have a new record, then return a true value and load the values, load the properties, load the fields into that incgr record so that I can access them. Let's do something simple like gsinfo incgr dot number. I'm doing this intentionally right now, so don't chastise me. I'm going to be making improvements. This is a functioning GlideRecord script. Okay? I've instantiated my variable. I created incgr. I said, go get some records. Now, as long as you have records, it will keep doing this list. It might be one record, it might be 100,000 records. It will go through and file through that list of things it retrieved. So if it's a long list, this is going to take a while. If it's a short list, it will take a very small time. And print out just the value of the number field, number being INC00100 or whatever it is. Okay? I know that my demo instance doesn't have a whole lot of records, so this won't take a long time. Under System Definition Scripts background, I paste that in and say run script down here on the bottom. Right? Keep in mind there is some settings down here that you might want to pay attention to. Record for rollback. If you're doing any updates or deletes, this is very handy. It's on by default. I suggest leaving it on because if you accidentally say, I want to delete these 3 records, and you forget to put in the 3 part and it deletes all the records, you can roll them back. So very, very handy. Let's run that script and it gives me a list of records displaying the number field. Not a terribly long list, but also notice they're not in any particular order. Number 60, number 9002, number 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, it's all over the place. 4, 601, 9003, 9004, 5, 2010. Kind of a crazy order. So at some point I may want to look at ordering them. My recommendation is go through the GlideRecord page and get familiar with, let me collapse these so they're sort of out of the way. Go through GlideRecord and get familiar with what some of these do. Add active query, add query. I'll tell you what some of the most popular ones are, and I will example them here. Okay. First one you want to know is incgr.addQuery. This says filter that list of all records down to something manageable. And if I simply say priority 1, that's going to take all the records and trim them down to just the ones where their priority is 1. value of that, as opposed to, okay, you may say, well, why wouldn't I just want to get all records and say something like if incgr.priority equals 1? Why wouldn't I want to do that, Chuck? Performance. That's the number one reason. If I have 10 million incidents in here, the database is going to go and retrieve all 10 million of those. And then you're going to say, no, 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 yes, no, 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 yes. It's a lot faster to tell the database to do the filtering than doing it programmatically. Okay, so consider this option always when you have a list of records. Make the database do the work. It's much, much faster, and it will make your script go much, much faster. So now all I'm processing in this while loop are those priority one requests. So add query, first one you want to know about. If I add that and go back to scripts background and run that, note my list is much shorter. It was about 3 times that long before, because I probably had priority 1s, 2s, and 3s. Let's also add another query. These are ANDed together. So it's priority 1 and add query active true. Notice that true is not in quotes. That would be a string. I'm looking for a Boolean true. So true and false without quotes are actual literal values, same as integers. All right, much shorter list. I've got just the active P1 incidents from this. So there you go. James says it's intermittent, seems to be good now. Okay, audio is working good. Could be my voice cracking too. It is Monday, it is early for me. So GlideRecord basics. One of the other ones you might want to do, let me run that one more time. You notice that it's still somewhat chaotic order. Well, it seems to be more ordered than it was before. Probably just because the data happened to align that way. But if I wanted to display this maybe by created date, I can do a, what is it? Is it sort by? Order by. It's order by. Okay, again, glance through these, make sure you know there's a lot of them, but there are things like order by, and I can put in the column or field name of how I want that to order. Now, many times people want to order it by number, order by, and there is an order by descending. It will reverse the order. So if I go by number, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of difference here, because these look pretty well ordered at first glance. If I took that original list, they wouldn't be. So this is definitely ordered by number. But if I were to order them by something else instead of number, let's order by caller ID. I don't know what that is. It's not being displayed. I could do that and maybe put in here plus caller ID. You're going to see something really interesting, because caller ID is a reference field. And a reference field contains, you guessed it, sysids. So is this ordered? Not really. 0 doesn't come before F, becomes before 4, 9, 7. It is, my guess is, it's displaying those with a display value. So if I put on here, get my cursor over there, dot display value, that adds on, get display value. Add a method onto my field to display that as something humans can read. It will then say, look, it knows when I do an order by on a reference field to use the display value. Who cares if you order by a sysid? That's meaningless to human beings. So this is actually sorted. Note that the numbers are no longer sorted. It's exactly the same thing if I were to go to the incident list. Okay, what I've done here is effectively the same as this. Priority is 1 and active is true. Run that and sort by this. Adele, Bo, Bud, Carol, David. Okay, there's 22 records in there. I even saw some Joe employees in there, right? So if I go back to scripts background, which I have as a favorite, paste that in. Adela, it doesn't look like the same list of records. Carol. Oh yeah, it is. It is. There's 4 Carols. There's a whole bunch of Joes. We're good. There was a Jared Bennett in there I saw. So we have a nice filtered list of records. That's GlideRecord in a nutshell. Also use Next and hasNext. Yes. So, you can mention the difference between GRNext and if GRNext. Absolutely. So there's the next method is simply going to say, do you have another record? And if so, give it to me. Okay, so that's what this is saying. If there's multiples, this while loop will keep going as long as there are records. However, there may be situations where you just want to see, are there any records? This is a waste of time. I don't need to retrieve 22 records to determine if there are any records. Okay, what I would do is, let's comment this out. Let's put a comment in here. Go through all records found matching above query. Okay. Then I'm going to comment that out for the moment. And I'm going to come back to that example because there's a couple of improvements on the one on there. So what you could also do is if incgr.next, and this says, if you have at least one, then I want to know information about it. gs.info, incgr. I'm going to change this a little bit. Down here I had incgr.number. It's important, very, very important, when you're dealing with GlideRecords to understand when you're dealing with an object's properties and when you're dealing with an object's properties values. Okay? incgr.number is not a value. It is an object. And if you don't say otherwise, and it says, well, I'm making a string because I've got this string operation in here, I'm going to convert this to a string implicitly. It walks, talks, and smells like a string. It is not a string. incgr.number is an object. It has its own set of methods. It has its own set of properties. It's a very robust thing. It's a very robust object. So be aware of that. And when you do that, if you want to extract just the value, I'll show you an example where this is very important. I think I did this on Thursday or Friday. Use getValue. So it's important that you also look at the glide object methods as well. And I'm going to get number out of here. These two appear to do the same thing. They do not do the same thing. Okay, and I can verify that quite easily with a gsinfo type of incgr.number followed by a gs.info type of incgr.getValue number. Put that in quotes. The other advantage of getValue is you can now put variables in there. So instead of a literal string that says number or sysid or caller ID, you can put in a variable to say, I want whatever field I pass into this function, for example. So this script is getting a little haywire, but what ifgr is going to do is say, do you have one record? And if so, show me the number. And I run that and it says, yes, the first one I encountered from your query is 2018. 2018, I don't remember that being at the top of the list, but okay, you have at least one record. Here's my type of, proving that incgr.number is an object. Why do I care? Because if I am copying that, I am copying the object, or copying what the object points to. I'm not copying the value. Why is that important? Well, same reason I said last week. I'm going to add on to this too, because there's one more thing I want to put in here. If I put into my while loop that I want to get the sysids. And I get the sysids in this way, incgr.sysid. You might say, well, it worked for number. It'll work for this. Okay? And you would think that this is going to work. Ta-da! It worked because it's outputting a string. But then when you go and say, well, let's build an array. Okay, var list equals empty array. And we could even keep displaying this. Say list dot push into the array incgr.sysid. And common mistake right there. Warning, 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 warning. If you do that, you will run into trouble. And you can prove it by going to gsinfo list equals list.join, and let's join it with some new lines so we can see the sysids in a similar fashion to the way that they were output before. Okay. Here I have the display of gsinfo number 1 in the while loop. Things are going great. And then you look at the actual contents of the array, and they're all the same. What happened? It happened because you're dealing with objects and references. You're not dealing with the true values. So in order to get rid of this, get in the habit of using get value. I really wish somebody would have told me this when I started scripting in ServiceNow. It would have saved me so many headaches. Okay. I would even go so far as declare a value, call a variable called id equals incgr dot, oh, here's one you might want to know about, get unique value. This is effectively the same as getting the sysid. However, now that I have the sysid in a string, it's not an object, it is a string. I can just reuse it here because anytime I use the same thing twice, I start thinking of a shorter way to do it. So let's do that. See that it fixes my crazy list of sysids. They're now down here. I end with one that ends with 91E72A501FF. Look, 91E72A501FF. Things are good. Okay, I fixed that problem. So don't fall into that trap. Use get value. Use get value. Something else I wanted to point out on this one. I may have filtered this down to priority ones, ordered by caller ID, maybe we'll order by number. I've got it to a much shorter list. It's not 100,000 records, it's not 10 million records, it's 50. Still, I don't need to retrieve all 50 of those to determine if there's a new one. There's one other method that I'd like you to keep in mind, incgr.setLimit. This is also good when you're testing a script that could potentially run for a very long time. Test it on a smaller ordered set. In this case, I only need one record to determine if there's one record. Again, make the database do the filtering. Retrieve as few records as possible, and your script will speed up. Imagine this script running as you import CIs, and the import set has run business rules on it, and that business rule has to do some processing over and over and over again. It's doing the same process. You want that to run as fast as possible to get your import as fast as possible. So, very crazy. All right, there's also a note in here about hasNext. You could do this without doing the retrieve. If you didn't care to use the values, this one says, if you have another record, go and retrieve it, and I will use it. But if you really don't care to use those values, you could also do hasNext. So if incgr.hasNext says, do you have another record? gs.info, yes, we have a record. Okay, I really don't care. But this one says, all right, if you do, then go and get it. And it will advance that GlideRecord pointers list to the next record. It's sort of like retrieve the values, move it on. Retrieve the values, move it on. And if it doesn't, it returns a false. So let's do something like let's get a null data set. Let's go back to incident.list. And see if there are any where the caller equals me. There are not. So if I know my sysid, which I don't, I could retrieve my record. Here, let's do a double query. Okay. Enter that. Get sample user. I could say var user gr equals new GlideRecord. Table name is one of our more common tables in here called sys_user, and user gr dot add query. Username is the field of the login name. Now I know my login name is chuck.tomasi. User gr.query, lowercase, thank you. And if user gr.next, that just says, did you really get Chuck's user ID? Let's actually make a not. If it doesn't return a positive value, gs.error could not get user. Just some error message that says we have a problem. Before we go any further, let's get that sample user ID. So I get a GlideRecord query to get a user, then I will add that to my next query once I verify that I've got the right code running to get that. Building up in little pieces just like I do in real life. And it says undetermined string literal in line 3. Okay, that's because I put a quote out there instead of a semicolon. Good to know. That would have shown up in the script editor. Unterminated literal on line 7. Now what did I do? Same thing. Whoa, I'm quick, huh? Your error needs a semicolon. Thank you, James. You guys see me type these things and just wait for me to get burned in gasoline, right? Okay, yes, we have a record, thing 28. So I got the user information because the error did not show up. So I know that I've got this. Now, here's another shortcut. If you are doing user queries, consider using the get. All right, let's say, for example, I know my sysid. I went to sysuser.list and I found my name. And I say, open this record, copy sysid, and I've got that. Okay, so I'm going to put this up here. Chuck Tomasi equals that. I could just as easily put in here sysid and this. Okay, then say go and query for that record and go get it. Okay, it got the next, it does the thing, it doesn't report an error, I've got the record. This feels overweight to me. Okay, there is a shortcut you can use to get, if you're just doing one query on one field and you know it's unique, like a sysid, you can use get. And get, by default, if you have one argument, it assumes it's a sysid. So I don't need that, and I don't need that. You know what? While we are doing this, let's do a quick save to a folder with today's date on it. New folder. Put that in there and call this GlideRecord example.js. Now we get the color coding for the JavaScript stuff. Okay? Makes it a little easier to read. I am a really, really old Unix programmer when it was green screen stuff. So when I first started seeing color-coded code editors, didn't really buy into it. I'm like, oh, that's nice eye candy, but it's not helping me much. Then the more I use them, the more, this is probably 15, 20 years ago, I'm like, okay, this is getting pretty handy. It, especially when you're in ServiceNow and it changes the color of a variable if it's not defined. If it's black, it's not defined. You go, oh, now it's very subtle because dark blue is defined. So never mind about that right now. So I can shortcut this and say, if you tried to do a get on this and it didn't work, then go on. Otherwise, I know that user GR has what I need. Let's test this one more time. Scripts background, paste, done. Now, of course, hard coding sysids is bad practice because I may have imported Chuck into dev and he's got one sysid. I may have imported him into prod. He's got another sysid. This script won't work between my dev and prod environments. So in order to insulate myself from that, avoid using hard-coded sysids. How do you do that? Well, let's go back to user.name. If I know that user underscore name. If I know that my usernames, my login IDs are all unique, I'm fine. If it's email addresses, fine. You do email. If it's something else, you do something else. And now you need two arguments to say, go find the record that has username Chuck Tomasi. Very handy for shortcutting these add queries that only have one query in them. Okay. Now, if I also wanted to find out if Chuck was active, that would be not working. So that's where I was going with that. We'll test it one more time just to show you that as I make modifications, they're still working. No error. So I know I've gotten to this point with a valid user record. Why do I care? Because I also want to find an empty data set, which is where I was going initially. incgr.add query. This is still anding together. Caller ID is the name of the caller field. And I want to get the value from my user GR. User gr.get, remember get unique value to get the sysid? Well, it's a reference field that holds a sysid, and I want the sysid of the user record that I just got. Makes sense? So I'm using the first query's results to help out the second query. Let's do that. And now my hasNext should say an else on here. Else gs.info, no, we have no records matching that query. I still have a set limit 1 because I could have 50,000 priority ones for Chuck. Don't need to retrieve all those if I just need to determine, do I have any? And then this is going to actually go and retrieve it and tell me what that number is, if it exists, which is going to be fun because it doesn't exist. And it will say, no, we don't have any records matching that. But I still get this object in type of. Why is that? Because incgr is still an object. It didn't retrieve anything though. So there's nothing there to latch onto, but it still has that object. It's just undefined. It has no values in it. Because I instantiated it means it's defined. I'm sorry when I said it was undefined. Because it's instantiated means it's defined, but it's empty. It just, there's nothing in it. It's like having a house that nobody lives in. Yeah, there's a house there. Okay. But I can't tell you the age of the owner. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So this is one way to do a number of things. There was one that I was going to do as I was, if you say, well, Chuck, these are all ANDed together. Add query, add query, add query. Priority is 1, and active is true, and caller is Chuck. Okay, it's going to come up with an empty set. What if I want to say, or caller is Chuck? There is a way to do that with add or operator. If I remember right. I don't use this one all that often because I usually jump right to, is it add or condition? Where is it? Not in here. Somebody out there in the chat. Order by, query, set abort actions, set limit. We talked about set limit. Heck with it. I can't remember. But there's a way to add on an or condition. And you'll see this, if you look through some of the examples, you'll see this as like add or condition, caller ID, Chuck.Tomasi. All right, you can chain these together. You can create a new object. It returns a new object. It gets a little wacky at this point. I really don't care to use it in that way. It's still going to come up with an empty set because I don't have any. And it's like, what was that S? Where did I sneak that in? Oh, typo. Must have bumped the keyboard. Paste that in there. Run that. And it says, yes, we have a record. Okay. Because I got either the P1 active or assigned to Chuck. You can do them that way, but I really don't. If you get past about one and one or, I get really confused. Somebody says, hey, I want you to take this particular condition. And they go to incident.list, and they start building out this wonderful query where it's this and this and an or in here. Look, it's even still got, how did that get in there? Priority is 1, priority is none, critical is, or color is birdie. Oh, that's what I'm building. I could have sworn that still said my name in there. It looked a lot like my other query. Or active is true, or you could even get something even crazier like a major or that says priority is 1. You know, there's going to be cases where you're going to have lots of logic issues. And active is true. And caller is Adela. Okay, that is not a fun query to write in script. But what you can do to get these 6 records is go up to the breadcrumbs up here, right there. Right-click and say Copy Query. This is one of my favorites. And instead of trying to wrap your brain around what would that look like, you can use one method, incgr, add encoded query. Because what Copy Query gives you is this big, long, bad boy with uppercases and ors and lots of nasty stuff. Even the society is in there, which I would turn into a variable and get through some other means. But aside from that, add encoded query saves you the heartache of building all of that stuff so that you can go to scripts background and get those same 6 records. Okay. I've got more stuff up here at the beginning that's kind of whacking it out. Okay, I've already done this operation. Let's comment that out. Go to our original while loop down here to build our array. We did a lot of stuff in this one. And I get a list of 1 record. That was interesting. The other list showed me 6. Okay, if you want to debug that, you certainly can and figure out, why did I get 1 record instead of 6? Oh, because I have a set limit on there. That's right. Chuck, you forgot to say that. Turn that off. Okay, I want all the records. Thank you. James says, love using add encoded query for queries involving data fields. Absolutely. So there's my 6 records. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ta-da. And I can verify them down here. I guess I don't need my super duper debug thing here. Just take that out to make it look a little more readable. Add or query is under glide query condition. Thank you, John. Have I missed anything that you scripting experts can think of that would be helpful for a novice? I know we covered a lot in just the last half hour or so. Let me just give a quick glance through GlideRecord, see if there's anything that jumps out at me. You can check permissions real quickly with can create, can delete, can read, can write. Sometimes that's handy to know. Only retrieve the records where somebody can write to them, for example. Add query has a number of features. There are some shortcuts. Add null query, add not null query. So instead of saying, an add query where you might want to find out where assigned to is empty, incgr.add null query assigned to. That says, show me all the records where assigned to is null. and not null. I use these occasionally, not a whole lot. Another one that I use even more now in scoped apps is add active query. That is equivalent to this one. Okay, add active is true. I'm going to put this back down. I'm going to take that one out. It just makes it look crazy for this example. So lines 12 and 13 are functionally equivalent. It really depends. Do you want to be verbose and say, I really want to tell you I'm looking for the fields where active is true? It has to be called active for this method to work. Not you underscore active, not my underscore active, not active underscore field, not it has to be ACTIVE. So nice thing about scoped apps is you can name your fields without the prefixes. Some of you choose to do that, that's fine, but realize that that's not going to work with this. And of course, there is a counterpart, add not active query, where it looks for false. So these are just shortcuts to add query. There was a bug at one point where add active query was not available to scoped apps, and I sort of fell out of the habit of using it. So trying to get back into that one. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Your mileage may vary. What else? Delete multiple, very dangerous. Don't do it unless you really, really, really mean to. And if you do, do it in script's background where you can revert. Get, I showed you the get shortcut where you could just get a record instead of setting up the query, doing the query, and doing the next. So that's great for one. Get ed, probably something not most gentlemen don't want to run, but that gets an element descriptor. I'm sorry, bad joke. Get label tells you the label of a field. So if I wanted to get the label of, am I in GlideRecord or GlideObject at this point? Get GlideRecord. So if I said get the label on a GlideRecord, it would say incident with a capital I, that is the label of the table, and it will apply language preferences for you as well. Get encoded query is another interesting one that I didn't know about for a while. And there's also, what was it? There's another one, set encoded query, that's not documented. But get encoded query, let's say, for example, instead of using add encoded query, I went back to my original setup like this, and I said, what does this look like when I type it all out? Let's go back to set limit 1, just so I'm not retrieving too much. And then after my query, I say gsinfo encoded query equals. You may want to know about this from time to time. It's not frequent, but occasionally I do, just to make sure if I'm building a query in script and I want to make sure that the variables evaluate to what I want and say, is this the right sysid? Is this the right value? Is this the right thing I passed in from somewhere else, I could say incgr.get encoded query. And it will spit out the string, much like this one with up carets and ors and all this kind of good stuff, to tell me what it actually ran. Paste, run, and it says your query is priority equals 1, up caret active equals true. I may want to pass that to perhaps a reference qualifier, or maybe I'm building a reference qualifier that I need to validate is correct. Even the order by gets in there, which is kind of sweet. Realizing that probably doesn't work with reference qualifiers because it's going to pop up a list and it's going to be sorted in whatever order the other person wants it sorted. I had a thought on that one. Oh, one other one that I've seen used commonly, use with caution, is gs.info incgr.get row count. And then I'm going to put in here a little string, records retrieved. This one will say 1 because I've got that set limit 1 still turned on. Okay, if I run that, it will tell me how many rows were retrieved. And it says 1 records retrieved. Could have put in a thing that checks if it shows you record or records. I didn't do that this time. This is potentially dangerous to performance because as my number increases, okay, I retrieved 1 record, it's not going to matter that much. If I have 10 records. Not that bad. It's going to take a couple of milliseconds to run the get row count. If I'm simply counting records, it is not scalable. Because if I want to know that if I have 110,000 records today versus 200,050,000 tomorrow, it's going to take longer and longer and longer because get row count retrieves all those records. It's like it's doing a next query. Next, 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 next. And it's going next, that's 1. Next, that's 2. Next, that's 3. Next, that's 4. Very slow. I did a quick test on this years ago, and I said, how long does it take you to count 4 million records? And it said, it takes me about 3 seconds. Now, if that were in a business rule, a before or an after, you're going to be waiting for your form to reload. And someone's going to say, 3 seconds doesn't seem like that much, but when you're waiting for a page to reload, it could take a while. If your data set doubles and goes from 4 million to 8 million, now you're waiting 6 seconds. 6 seconds is a long time to wait for a page to reload or a data import to happen, just because you're doing a get row count. Okay, this is where it falls apart. Only use, this is an important technical best practice, only use get row count if you plan to do something else with those records. Display values within the record, update values within the record. You're doing something else. If all you want is a count, then we turn to GlideRecord's cousin called GlideAggregate. If all I want is a count of records, then GlideAggregate is a better way to go. It's an extension of GlideRecord. So it has many of the same methods. You'll see in here, add encoded query, add null query, but you're not getting all the records to get that count. It's telling the database, in essence, it's telling the database to count them yourself. It's much faster and it's much more scalable. In that example where I went from a 3-second count for 4 million records to a 6-second count for 8 million records, I did the same test with GlideAggregate. It went from 2 milliseconds for 4 million records to 2 million seconds for 8 million records. So no appreciable. It stayed very fast. Instead of seconds, we're dealing with milliseconds. So much more scalable. If all you want to do is count, GlideAggregate. If you need to do something with those records, GlideRecord is fine because you're going to be spending time doing something with those records anyway. I recommend doing them in the background, in an async business rule, in a script action, which I was planning on talking about today, but maybe I'll save that for tomorrow. So maybe talk about hasNext and get row count. We did get row count. I thought I did hasNext. Did I not do that? Yeah, I did. I did hasNext. So hasNext, the difference between next and hasNext does not retrieve that record. It simply says, is there another one there? So it's if you imagine that list of, say, 4 records, next has the pointer on the first one, says, good, give me the data, populates the data, and moves the pointer. That's what next does. hasNext goes, is there a record there? Yes. Fine, that's all you need to know. I don't know that I've ever used the two together, but the difference is hasNext doesn't retrieve that information. It just does a status check and says, is there at least a record there? Yeah, that's good. Okay, good. I will save that to the GitHub repo. It's been fun. I haven't had a chance to dive into a single topic like this in a while. So thank you very much for joining me today. It's all about GlideRecords. Who knows what topic we'll come up with tomorrow. This is unscripted, unspecified. You tell me if you've got something on your mind. I like going back to the basics like this and getting that going. On a related note, there is a series headed for the developer YouTube channel. So if you go to, I think I still have a slide for this. Yeah, there it is. youtube.com/ServiceNowDevProgram. You will find that shortly. It's not up there yet. There will be a playlist for Learn JavaScript on the Now platform. And I will take you through over 50 videos. It took a while to build this thing. Over 50 videos, starting with getting an instance, learning what variables are, where do comments go, where do those darn semicolons go, Boolean logic, looping, arrays, objects. It builds as you go So if you've never done scripting before, or you want to just dive in and go, what's a do-while loop and how does it differ from a while loop? We've got you covered there too. So that's the basics about JavaScript. There is a little section there on GlideRecord, not nearly what I went into today, but you can reference that as well. So that's coming shortly. Look for that this month. I'm pushing hard to get the person to publish those videos. They are done. They just need to be published. So that's where we're going for that. I look forward to seeing you there. Until next time, have a great day. And if you learned something, great. Don't forget to click that like on the video. And if it refreshed your memory or you just thought it was useful, maybe even mildly entertaining, click the like button or the helpful button in the community video is also appreciated. Until next time, take care. Bye. Have a great day.